Sarah had always dreamed of being a fashion designer. Growing up, she spent countless hours sketching designs, draping fabric over mannequins, and envisioning her creations on the runway. After years of hard work, she finally landed a job at a prestigious fashion house in the city. But as her career began to take off, her marriage to Mark started to feel like a weight dragging her down. Mark was charming, no doubt. He had a magnetic personality that drew people in, and he was always the life of the party, but behind that charming facade lay a man who thrived on control. At first, Sarah found his confidence attractive. He was ambitious and driven, qualities she admired. However, as time went on, she began to notice the subtle ways he undermined her. During dinner parties, Mark would often dismiss her ideas, making jokes at her expense. "Oh, Sarah's just being creative again," he'd say with a laugh, leaving her feeling small and unappreciated. It was as if he needed to elevate himself by belittling her. At first, she brushed it off, convincing herself that he was just joking. But the jokes became sharper, more cutting, and she found herself questioning her worth. Despite the emotional turmoil, Sarah tried to support Mark in his career. She attended his events, dressed to impress, and cheered him on from the sidelines. But every time she shared her own successes, she could see the flicker of annoyance in his eyes. It was as if her achievements threatened his sense of superiority. As the months passed, Sarah felt increasingly isolated. She poured her heart and soul into her designs, but every time she brought home a new project or a compliment from a colleague, Mark would find a way to downplay it. "It's just a dress, Sarah. You're not saving the world," he'd say, dismissing her passion as trivial. The more he belittled her, the more she tried to prove herself. She worked late nights, sacrificed weekends, and pushed herself to the brink, all in the hopes of gaining his approval. But it never came. Instead, she found herself trapped in a cycle of self-doubt, feeling like a shadow of the woman she once was. Yet, despite the emotional strain, Sarah held on to the hope that things would change. She believed that if she just tried harder, if she just made him proud, he would see her for who she truly was. But deep down, she knew that the man she had married was not the same man she had fallen in love with. The charming facade was beginning to crack, revealing a darker side that she could no longer ignore. The night of the party was supposed to be a celebration of Mark's latest business achievement. He had secured a major deal that would elevate his company's status, and he wanted to share the moment with his closest friends. Sarah had spent hours preparing for the event, choosing a stunning dress that accentuated her figure and made her feel confident. She hoped that tonight would be different, that Mark would acknowledge her support and perhaps even show her off as his wife. As they arrived at the upscale restaurant, the atmosphere buzzed with excitement. Friends greeted them with warm smiles and congratulatory hugs. Mark was in his element, charming everyone around him, while Sarah stood by his side, beaming with pride. She felt a flicker of hope that maybe tonight would be the night he recognized her efforts. The dinner began with laughter and toasts, and Sarah found herself enjoying the moment. She engaged in conversations, sharing her latest design ideas and receiving genuine compliments from their friends. For a brief moment, she felt seen and appreciated, but as the night wore on, she noticed Mark's demeanor shifting. He seemed more focused on impressing his friends than on celebrating their relationship. Then came the moment that would change everything. As the evening progressed, Mark poured himself another glass of red wine, his laughter echoing through the room. Sarah, feeling a surge of confidence, shared a funny story about a recent fashion show mishap. She expected Mark to join in the laughter, but instead, he shot her a look that silenced her. "Always acting like such an idiot," he sneered, his voice dripping with disdain. The words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Before she could process what was happening, he raised his glass and with a swift motion splashed the wine across her face. Time slowed as the red liquid soaked into her dress, warm and sticky. Gasps erupted around the table, but no one moved. No one said a word. Mark's friends exchanged nervous glances, unsure of how to react. And then came the laughter. His laughter, as if he had just delivered the best punchline of the night. Sarah felt the heat of humiliation wash over her. She could feel the eyes of their friends boring into her, waiting to see how she would respond. Her cheeks burned, not just from the wine, but from the sheer embarrassment of being the center of attention for all the wrong reasons. This was supposed to be a night of celebration, and instead, she had become the entertainment. Taking a deep breath, she wiped her face with her napkin, trying to regain her composure. "Excuse me," she said, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside. She turned on her heel and walked away, ignoring the whispers trailing behind her. As she stepped outside, the cool night air hit her like a wave, but it did little to calm the storm brewing within. She drove home alone, her heart pounding in her chest. Mark didn't chase after her. He was too busy basking in the attention of his friends, deflecting their uncomfortable glances with another joke. Once home, Sarah sat in the dim light of the kitchen, replaying the events of the night in her mind. Was it really that bad? She hated that part of her, the part that always wanted to justify his behavior, the part that told herself he didn't mean it, that he was just stressed. But tonight felt different. Tonight, something inside her shifted. She wasn't angry, not yet. The anger would come later. What she felt now was something far more dangerous, clarity. As the clock ticked past midnight, Sarah sat alone in the kitchen, the silence amplifying her thoughts. The events of the evening replayed in her mind like a broken record. She could still feel the sting of the wine on her skin, the laughter echoing in her ears. It was as if the humiliation had seeped into her very being, and she couldn't shake it off. When Mark finally walked through the door, she could hear his footsteps echoing down the hall, casual and carefree. He expected to find her sulking, perhaps even crying, so he could wrap his arms around her and dismiss her feelings with a few empty words. "You know I was just joking, babe. Don't be so sensitive," he would say, as if that would erase the pain he had caused. But tonight was different. Sarah had reached her breaking point. She was done being the punchline in his jokes, the accessory in his life. When he stepped into the kitchen and saw her sitting at the table, his expression shifted from casual to confused. "What are you doing?" he asked, his brow furrowing as he took in the sight of her with her laptop open and a pen in hand. "In making a list," she replied, her voice calm and steady. "A list of what?" he asked, his curiosity piqued but laced with skepticism. She closed her notebook softly, the sound echoing in the tense silence. "Of everything you've ever done to me." Mark laughed, but it was an uneasy chuckle, the confidence in his voice slipping. "Oh, come on, Sarah, don't be dramatic." But Sarah didn't answer. Instead, she reached for her phone and pulled up a video, turning the screen toward him. It was the recording of the dinner party. Someone had captured the moment he humiliated her, and now she had it in her hands. Mark's smirk faltered as he stared at the screen, the dim glow illuminating his face. "What is this?" he asked, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Exactly what it looks like," she replied, her heart racing. The video played, showing his laughter, the splash of wine, and her stunned reaction. She locked eyes with him, feeling a mix of anger and empowerment. "They thought I should have a copy." Mark's expression shifted from shock to irritation. "Delete it," he commanded, his voice firm. "What? It's just a joke, isn't it?" she challenged, tilting her head defiantly. His jaw tightened, and he ran a hand through his hair, exhaling sharply. "You're overreacting, Sarah. Nobody cares about stupid things like this. It was just a joke." "Tell me, Mark," she pressed. "If I had done the same to you, would it still be funny?" His lips pressed into a thin line, and for the first time she saw a flicker of fear in his eyes. "Of course not," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. The realization hit her like a tidal wave. If the roles had been reversed, he would have stormed out, calling her unstable and ridiculous, but he had spent years convincing her that his words were just jokes, while her feelings were mere overreactions. Not anymore. "Sarah, come on." He forced a laugh, but she could see the cracks forming in his facade. "What are you trying to do here, punish me? You're being ridiculous." She stood up slowly, picking up her notebook and flipping through the pages. "Do you know what this is?" she asked, tapping her fingers against the worn paper. Mark scoffed. "A diary of every time I pissed you off?" "Close," she said, her voice steady. "It's a record of every insult, every lie, every time you've made me feel small." She held his gaze, unflinching. "I've been keeping track, Mark, and guess what? There's a pattern." His expression flickered between amusement and irritation. "You need to stop watching those dramatic self-help videos, Sarah. This is insane." "Is it?" she asked, stepping closer. "Because it wasn't insane when I sat quietly and let you treat me like an accessory to your life. It wasn't insane when you made me feel like I was lucky to have you instead of the other way around." In that moment, she saw the realization dawning on him. She wasn't just upset, she was done. Mark exhaled, shaking his head. "Fine, you're mad. I get it. So what now? You hold this video over my head forever?" "I said I was sorry," he added, irritation creeping into his voice. "Can we move on now?" There it was, not real remorse, just irritation that she wasn't brushing it off like she always had. "Moving on." She let the words roll over her tongue, testing their weight. Mark's body relaxed slightly. "Good. That's all I'm asking." "Oh no," she corrected him. "I meant me moving on, not us." His head snapped up, confusion etched on his face. "What?" "I called a lawyer today." The words hung in the air, heavy and final. He blinked, as if she had spoken in a foreign language. "You're not serious." "I am very serious," she replied, holding up her phone again, this time showing a different screen. "A list of legal consultation appointments." His laugh was hollow. "You're overreacting, Sarah. You're not actually going to throw our marriage away over this?" "Our marriage?" She arched a brow. "The one where you insult me in public? The one where you make me feel like I'm nothing?" "I didn't ruin our marriage, you did," she said firmly. "I just finally decided to stop pretending otherwise." Mark ran a hand over his face, pacing the kitchen, muttering under his breath. "What do you want, huh?" His voice turned sharp. "Do you want me to get on my knees and beg? Is that what this is?" "I don't want anything from you, Mark," she said simply. "That's the point." He laughed again, but there was nothing amused about it. "You're being dramatic. You won't actually go through with this." "I will," she said, her voice steady. "Wait and see." With that, she turned to leave, but before she reached the hallway, she glanced over her shoulder one last time. "Oh, and Mark," she said lightly, "I'd think twice before laughing this off in front of your friends. You never know who else has a copy of that video." For the first time in years, she didn't care what he had to say. She walked away, leaving Mark standing there, stunned and speechless. The next morning, Sarah woke up feeling a mix of anxiety and relief. The events of the previous night replayed in her mind, but instead of feeling defeated, she felt empowered. She had finally stood up for herself, and the clarity she had gained was invigorating. As she sipped her coffee, she thought about the conversation with Mark and the path she was now on. She had spent years trying to make her marriage work, convincing herself that things would get better. But now, she realized that she had been living in a cycle of emotional manipulation and control. Mark's charm had blinded her to the reality of their relationship, and she was done being a victim. After a quick shower, Sarah sat down at her kitchen table, her laptop open in front of her. She began researching divorce lawyers, reading reviews, and making notes. Each click of the mouse felt like a step toward freedom. She was determined to take control of her life, to reclaim her identity as a designer and a woman who deserved respect. As she scrolled through the options, her phone buzzed with a message from Mia, her best friend. "Hey, just checking in. How are you holding up?" Sarah took a deep breath and typed back, "I'm okay. I think I'm finally ready to make some changes." Mia responded almost immediately. "Good, you deserve to be happy. Let's meet up later." "Definitely," Sarah replied, feeling a sense of comfort in knowing she had support. After finalizing her list of potential lawyers, Sarah decided to take a break and go for a walk. The fresh air felt invigorating, and as she strolled through the park, she reflected on her life. She had always loved fashion, and now it was time to focus on her passion without the weight of Mark's negativity holding her back. Later that afternoon, Sarah met Mia at a cozy cafe. As they settled into their seats, Mia looked at her with concern. "You okay? I heard about the party." "That's awful, Sarah." "It was humiliating," Sarah admitted, her voice trembling slightly. "But it was also a wake-up call. I can't keep living like this." Mia nodded, her expression serious. "You deserve so much better. Have you thought about what you want to do next?" "I've been researching lawyers," Sarah said, her heart racing at the thought. "I'm ready to file for divorce." Mia's eyes widened, and a smile broke across her face. "That's amazing. I'm so proud of you. You're taking control of your life." "I just want to be free," Sarah replied, her voice steady. "I want to focus on my designs and build my career without him dragging me down." As they talked, Sarah felt a renewed sense of purpose. She shared her ideas for a new fashion line, one that would reflect her journey and empowerment. Mia listened intently, offering encouragement and suggestions. For the first time in a long time, Sarah felt excited about her future. After their coffee, Sarah returned home, her mind buzzing with possibilities. She sat down at her laptop and began sketching designs, pouring her heart into each stroke of the pencil. The creative flow felt liberating, and she realized that this was what she had been missing: her passion, her identity. That evening, as she prepared for bed, Sarah felt a sense of peace wash over her. She was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The next day, she would call a lawyer and take the first step toward reclaiming her life. The next morning, Sarah woke up with a sense of purpose. She had scheduled her consultation with the divorce lawyer for that afternoon, and the thought both excited and terrified her. As she prepared for the day, she dressed carefully, choosing an outfit that made her feel confident and strong. She wanted to present herself as the empowered woman she was becoming, not the shadow of her former self. After a quick breakfast, Sarah took a moment to gather her thoughts. She had made a list of everything she wanted to discuss during the meeting: custody arrangements, financial considerations, and the emotional toll the marriage had taken on her. She knew that this was a pivotal moment in her life, and she wanted to be prepared. When she arrived at the law office, her heart raced. The building was modern and sleek, a stark contrast to the chaos of her home life. As she stepped inside, she was greeted by a friendly receptionist who directed her to a waiting area. The walls were adorned with inspirational quotes about strength and resilience, and Sarah found herself drawing strength from them. A few minutes later, a woman in her 40s entered the waiting area. "Sarah?" she called, her voice warm and inviting. "I'm Lisa, your attorney. It's nice to meet you." "Nice to meet you too," Sarah replied, feeling a mix of nerves and relief as she followed Lisa into her office. The room was bright and welcoming, filled with natural light and comfortable furniture. "Please, have a seat," Lisa said, gesturing to a plush chair across from her desk. "I understand this is a difficult time for you, and I'm here to help." As they settled in, Sarah took a deep breath and began to share her story. She recounted the emotional manipulation, the belittling comments, and the incident at the party that had pushed her to seek help. Lisa listened intently, nodding in understanding as Sarah spoke. "It sounds like you've been through a lot," Lisa said gently. "It's important to recognize that you deserve to be treated with respect and kindness. We can work together to ensure that you get the support you need moving forward." Sarah felt a wave of relief wash over her. For the first time, someone was validating her feelings and experiences. They discussed the details of her marriage, including financial matters and potential custody arrangements for any future children. Lisa explained the legal process, outlining the steps they would take to file for divorce and protect Sarah's interests. "Do you have any specific goals in mind for this process?" Lisa asked, her tone professional yet compassionate. "I just want to be free," Sarah replied, her voice steady. "I want to rebuild my life and focus on my career. I don't want to be tied to someone who doesn't respect me." Lisa smiled, clearly impressed by Sarah's determination. "That's a great mindset to have. We'll work to ensure that you can move forward without the burden of your past." As the consultation continued, Sarah felt a sense of empowerment growing within her. She was taking control of her life, and with each passing moment, she felt more confident in her decision. By the end of the meeting, they had outlined a plan of action, and Sarah left the office with a sense of hope she hadn't felt in years. On her way home, she couldn't help but smile. She had taken the first step toward reclaiming her life, and it felt exhilarating. She knew there would be challenges ahead, but for the first time she felt ready to face them head-on. The following days passed in a blur of activity. Sarah immersed herself in her work, channeling her emotions into her designs. Each sketch felt like a step toward liberation, a way to express the strength she was discovering within herself. She spent hours in her studio, surrounded by fabric swatches and sketches, losing herself in the creative process. But as the days turned into a week, the reality of her decision began to settle in. She had not yet confronted Mark about her plans, and the thought of doing so filled her with a mix of dread and anticipation. She knew that the longer she waited, the harder it would be. One evening, as she prepared dinner, she heard the familiar sound of Mark's car pulling into the driveway. Her heart raced as she set the table, knowing that this would be the moment of truth. She had rehearsed what she wanted to say in her mind, but now that the time had come, she felt a wave of uncertainty wash over her. When Mark walked through the door, he greeted her with a casual, "Hey, how was your day?" His tone was light, but Sarah could sense an underlying tension. "Busy," she replied, forcing a smile as she stirred the pasta sauce. "I've been working on some new designs." "Great. I can't wait to see them," he said, pouring himself a drink. As they sat down to eat, Sarah felt the weight of her decision pressing down on her. She took a deep breath, her heart pounding in her chest. "Mark, we need to talk." His expression shifted, a flicker of concern crossing his face. "About what?" "About us," she said, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside. He set his glass down, his attention fully on her now. "What's going on?" "I've been doing a lot of thinking," she began, her hands trembling slightly, "and I've realized that I can't continue living like this." Mark's brow furrowed. "Living like what?" "Like I'm not valued," she replied, her voice firm. "Like I'm just here to support you while you belittle me." He opened his mouth to respond, but she held up a hand to stop him. "I'm not finished. I've scheduled consultations with a divorce lawyer, and I'm ready to file for divorce." The silence that followed was deafening. Mark's expression shifted from confusion to anger, his jaw tightening. "You can't be serious," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "I am serious, Mark. I deserve better than this," she replied, her heart racing. He leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms defensively. "You're throwing away our marriage over a few bad moments. You're being dramatic." "It's not just a few bad moments," she countered, her voice rising slightly. It's years of emotional manipulation and disrespect. I've tried to make this work, but I can't do it anymore. Mark's face darkened, and she could see the anger boiling beneath the surface. You think you can just walk away from everything we've built? You'll regret this. I won't regret it, she said firmly. I'm finally taking control of my life, and I won't let you intimidate me anymore. He stood up abruptly, pushing his chair back with a loud scrape. You're making a huge mistake, Sarah. You'll be alone, and you'll realize how good you had it. I'd rather be alone than be with someone who doesn't respect me. She shot back, her voice steady. Mark's expression shifted, and for a moment she saw a flicker of vulnerability. You really think you can do this on your own? I know I can, she replied, her heart pounding. I have friends who support me, and I'm ready to start over. He shook his head, disbelief etched on his face. You're being foolish, you'll see. With that, he stormed out of the room, leaving Sarah standing there, her heart racing. She felt a mix of fear and exhilaration. She had finally confronted him, and while she knew the road ahead would be difficult, she also felt a sense of liberation. As she cleaned up the dinner table, she realized that she had taken a significant step toward reclaiming her life. No matter what Mark said, she was ready to embrace her future, one filled with hope and possibility. As the weeks passed, Sarah settled into a new routine. She continued to work on her designs, and with each passing day, she felt more confident in her decision to pursue a divorce. However, the reality of the legal process loomed over her like a dark cloud. She had met with Lisa, her attorney, several times to discuss the details of her case, and while she felt empowered, the thought of the impending legal battle was daunting. One afternoon, Sarah received a call from Lisa. Hi, Sarah. I wanted to update you on the next steps in your case, Lisa said, her tone professional yet reassuring. Mark has responded to the divorce petition, and we need to prepare for the next phase. Sarah's heart raced. What does that mean? It means we'll need to gather evidence and documentation to support your claims, Lisa explained. This could include financial records, any evidence of emotional manipulation, and anything else that demonstrates the challenges you faced in the marriage. Okay, Sarah replied, feeling a mix of anxiety and determination. I'll do whatever it takes. Good. I'll send you a list of what we need, and we can schedule a time to go over everything together, Lisa said. After hanging up, Sarah took a deep breath. She knew this would be a challenging process, but she was ready to fight for her freedom. She spent the next few days gathering documents, reflecting on her experiences, and writing down instances of Mark's behavior that had affected her emotionally. As she worked, she felt a sense of clarity. Each memory she documented was a reminder of why she was taking this step. She was reclaiming her narrative, and with each piece of evidence, she felt more empowered. When she met with Lisa again, they reviewed the materials Sarah had gathered. This is a strong foundation, Lisa said, nodding approvingly. We'll use this to build your case and demonstrate the emotional toll this marriage has taken on you. Sarah felt a surge of hope. Thank you for your support, Lisa. I really appreciate it. Of course. You're doing the hard work, and I'm here to guide you through the legal process, Lisa replied. As the weeks turned into months, Sarah found herself navigating the complexities of the divorce process. Mark's responses were often combative, and he attempted to undermine her claims. He would send messages filled with accusations, trying to provoke her into reacting. But Sarah remained steadfast, focusing on her goals and the support of her friends. One evening, after a particularly difficult day, Sarah met Mia for dinner. I don't know how much longer I can handle this, Sarah admitted, her voice trembling. Mark keeps trying to manipulate me, and it's exhausting. Mia reached across the table, squeezing Sarah's hand. You're stronger than you think. Remember why you're doing this. You deserve to be happy and free. I know, but it's hard, Sarah said, tears welling in her eyes. I just want this to be over." Mia nodded, her expression serious. "It will be. Just keep pushing forward. You have so much support behind you." With Mia's encouragement, Sarah found the strength to keep going. She continued to focus on her designs, using her creativity as an outlet for her emotions. She began to gain recognition in the local fashion community, and her work was featured in a small boutique. Each success fueled her determination to move forward. As the legal proceedings continued, Sarah learned to navigate the emotional roller coaster. She had moments of doubt and fear, but she also experienced moments of triumph and empowerment. She was reclaiming her life, one step at a time. As the divorce proceedings dragged on, Sarah found herself in a constant state of flux. Some days she felt empowered and ready to take on the world. Other days, the weight of the situation threatened to overwhelm her. Mark's attempts to manipulate her continued, but she was learning to stand her ground. One afternoon, Sarah received a call from Lisa. "Hi, Sarah. I wanted to discuss the upcoming mediation session," Lisa said, her tone serious. "It's important that you're prepared for this meeting. Mark will likely try to downplay your claims and shift the narrative." "I understand," Sarah replied, her heart racing. "What should I do to prepare?" "Focus on your goals for the mediation," Lisa advised. "Think about what you want in terms of financial support and any arrangements regarding future children. It's crucial to stay calm and collected during the session." After hanging up, Sarah took a moment to gather her thoughts. She knew that this mediation could be a turning point in her case, and she wanted to approach it with clarity and confidence. She spent the next few days reflecting on her needs and desires, writing down her thoughts and practicing how she would present them. On the day of the mediation, Sarah arrived at the office feeling a mix of nerves and determination. She wore a tailored blazer that made her feel powerful, and she took a deep breath as she entered the conference room. Lisa was already there, reviewing notes. "Are you ready?" Lisa asked, looking up and offering a reassuring smile. "As ready as I'll ever be," Sarah replied, her voice steady. When Mark arrived, the tension in the room was palpable. He walked in with an air of confidence, but Sarah could see the underlying anger in his eyes. They exchanged brief glances, and she felt a surge of determination. This was her moment to stand up for herself. The mediation began, and the atmosphere was tense. Lisa presented Sarah's case, outlining the emotional and financial challenges she had faced during the marriage. Mark's attorney countered with accusations, attempting to paint Sarah as the instigator of their problems. "Sarah has made choices that have led to this situation," Mark's attorney argued. "She's exaggerating her claims to gain an advantage." But Sarah remained calm, focusing on her goals. When it was her turn to speak, she took a deep breath and addressed the mediator directly. "I want to clarify that I'm not here to play games. I'm here because I deserve to be treated with respect and to have a fair resolution to this situation." Mark shifted in his seat, his expression darkening. "You're being dramatic, Sarah. You're just trying to make me look bad." "I'm not trying to make you look bad," she replied, her voice steady. "I'm sharing my truth. For years, I've been manipulated and belittled, and I won't allow that to continue." The mediator nodded, recognizing the emotional weight of Sarah's words. "It's important to acknowledge the feelings involved in this situation. Let's focus on finding a resolution that works for both parties." As the mediation continued, Sarah felt a sense of empowerment growing within her. She articulated her needs clearly, standing firm in her convictions. Mark's attempts to undermine her were met with calm responses from Lisa, who expertly countered his claims. After several hours of negotiation, they reached a tentative agreement. Sarah felt a mix of relief and exhaustion as they wrapped up the session. While it wasn't everything she had hoped for, it was a significant step toward her freedom. As she left the office, Sarah felt a weight lift off her shoulders. She had stood up for herself in a way she never thought possible, and she was proud of her progress. The road ahead was still uncertain, but she was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. That evening, Sarah met Mia for dinner to celebrate the small victory. "I can't believe you did it," Mia exclaimed, her eyes shining with pride. "You stood your ground." "I did," Sarah replied, a smile spreading across her face. "It felt amazing to finally speak my truth." Mia raised her glass in a toast. "To new beginnings and the incredible woman you're becoming." As they clinked glasses, Sarah felt a surge of hope. She was reclaiming her life one step at a time, and she was ready to embrace the future with open arms. In the weeks following the mediation, Sarah felt a renewed sense of purpose. The tentative agreement had given her hope, but it also marked the beginning of a new chapter in her life. She was determined to embrace the changes ahead, both personally and professionally. With the support of Mia and her growing network in the fashion community, Sarah began to focus on her designs with even more passion. She started planning a small fashion show to showcase her latest collection, which was inspired by her journey of self-discovery and empowerment. The collection featured bold colors and strong lines, reflecting the strength she had found within herself. As she worked on the show, Sarah also took time to reflect on her personal growth. She began journaling her thoughts and feelings, documenting her journey through the divorce and the lessons she was learning along the way. Each entry was a reminder of how far she had come and the resilience she had developed. One evening, while working late in her studio, Sarah received a message from Lisa. "Hi, Sarah. I wanted to check in and see how you're feeling about the agreement. Have you had a chance to review everything?" "I have," Sarah replied, her fingers flying over the keyboard. "I'm feeling good about it. It's not perfect, but it's a step in the right direction." "That's great to hear," Lisa responded. "Remember, you have the power to shape your future. This is just the beginning." Inspired by Lisa's words, Sarah decided to take a leap of faith. She reached out to local boutiques and offered to showcase her collection in their stores. To her delight, several boutiques expressed interest, and she began to organize a series of trunk shows to promote her design. As the trunk shows approached, Sarah felt a mix of excitement and nerves. She poured her heart into preparing for each event, ensuring that every detail was perfect. She wanted to create an experience that would resonate with her audience, showcasing not just her designs, but also her story of resilience and empowerment. On the day of her first trunk show, Sarah arrived at the boutique early to set up. The space was filled with natural light, and she carefully arranged her designs on display racks, adding personal touches that reflected her journey. As the doors opened, she felt a rush of adrenaline. The turnout was better than she had anticipated. Friends, family, and even some local fashion enthusiasts came to support her. As she mingled with guests, sharing her story and the inspiration behind her collection, she felt a sense of belonging that she hadn't experienced in a long time. During the event, Sarah noticed a woman admiring one of her dresses. "This is beautiful," the woman said, her eyes sparkling. "What inspired this design?" "It's inspired by my journey of self-discovery," Sarah replied, her heart swelling with pride. "I wanted to create something that reflects strength and resilience." The woman nodded, clearly moved. "You've done an incredible job. I can feel the energy in your designs." As the evening progressed, Sarah received positive feedback and even made several sales. The experience was exhilarating, and she felt a sense of accomplishment that fueled her passion even further. After the trunk show, Sarah celebrated with Mia and a few close friends. "You did it!" Mia exclaimed, her eyes shining with excitement. "This is just the beginning for you." "I can't believe how well it went," Sarah replied, her heart full. "I feel like I'm finally on the right path." As they toasted to her success, Sarah realized that she was not just reclaiming her life, she was building a future filled with possibilities. The divorce process was still ongoing, and there would be challenges ahead, but she was ready to face them head on. With each step she took, Sarah felt more empowered and confident in her abilities. She was no longer defined by her past. She was a woman on a mission, ready to embrace the changes that lay ahead.